So welcome everybody. So we've got all our regulars back, and we've got some people that we haven't seen for a little while. And so welcome back everybody. Good to see you, Fred. So we're really excited about tonight. This is going to be fun, I think. This is our first True North Caricature Carvers show and competition. John and I have had an awful lot of fun with this. You know, we've had 29 entries, which kind of exceeded what we had originally thought we'd be getting as our first attempt at this. And so I think we're going to have some fun with this. If you guys find it fun, you guys and gals find it fun as well, there's no reason why we can't make this a semi-annual event maybe, and have one maybe a little bit later in the summer or so after we've carved up some more items that we can show off. One of the things that John and I really enjoyed is seeing really all of the carvings that were really challenging for people to do. Like even at a novice level, John, people were taking on some really challenging poses and challenging carvings. And that's what this is all about, right? To try to kind of extend yourselves and try something a little bit different. You might see somebody else bring a carving and think, geez, I'm going to try something like that, and it might be just a little bit out of your grasp, but you try it anyway. That's how we learn. So it was really nice to see that. And the other thing that John and I talked about over the last few weeks as we've been taking a look at these is that we're learning a lot as well. You know, John and I started this off with the intent to just make it fun and something that a forum where we could all learn from one another. And John and I have been trying to provide little topics that we could talk about to help each other learn. And seeing everybody's carvings really kind of gave us some insight. Well, where should we be putting our attention? What could we do to maybe talk a little bit more about a particular aspect of carving, caricatures, and bring those back to subsequent Zoom calls? So it really helped us as well. So thanks for being here tonight. Thanks for all those people that have sent in a carving. I think we're going to have some fun with this. So this is what we're calling our winter 2022 show and competition. I kept thinking of it as the spring show and competition, but I guess I was pushing things a bit. Although today it's a real nice spring day, we could have got away with it. So the discussion, let me spend a few minutes, and John and I spend a few minutes talking about how we'll go through this. From a discussion standpoint, we did our judging against a balance of what we've been discussing all along as we've been having these Zoom calls. And so really four main points that we've covered on these Zoom calls, one being composition and design. So how to tell a bit of a simple story with a caricature carving, the whole notion of composition in terms of exaggeration of anatomy, like ears and head and nose and hands and feet, those types of things. So as we took a look at the carvings, we thought of composition and design as we judged them. Another aspect was just technical difficulty. So how difficult was this particular carving to do? Is it animated with a lot of motion in it that might require a different level of carving, or is it very static, as an example? We also judged against craftsmanship. So we were thinking of craftsmanship in terms of, how clean is the carving in terms of crispness of cuts? Are we using a sharp knife? Is there real sharpness in the carving? As well as fit. So if, we've talked about fitting on arms and legs and types of things, doweling them in place to get the full strength of the carving that you want. Is that fit nice and crisp, or can you see a seam there? And then we talked about finish. The painting accuracy, how accurate is the painting? We've talked again there about using a burning tool to make a little valley so that one paint color doesn't bleed into the other paint color. We talked about opacity, the opacity of paint versus the use of a spectrum of color. So are we, if you're using blue, is it just one color blue, or are you using various colors of blue to show shading and the way the light's hitting a shirt, or depthness of a wrinkle, that type of thing? So those are the four main things that we use to judge each of these carvings. And that's what you'll see normally at a live carving demonstration as well. The judges will use generally those 4 categories to take a look at a carving. But the reality is there's an overall impression as well. And so despite all of those things, you just have an overall impression of the carving. Is it something that, you were drawn to, that you walked away from and you had to come back and look at it a second time? And so that plays into it as well. And that's kind of subjective, and it's dependent really on one judge to the next. And in fact, because of that, you can bring your carving to a carving show and have one set of judges judge it completely different from another set of judges. Okay, and that's just sort of the nature of the animal. Okay. Now, I started off by saying we judged against the balance of those things. And so, it wasn't as if we marked each one in each one of those categories, marked each carving in each one of those categories. It was a balance. The one carving may have had really high marks, if you wanted, technical difficulty, but lower marks in craftsmanship. And you just balance all of those things out. And at the end say, this is what I'm going to award as first, second, and third. Okay. So that's the notion behind it. Any questions, just pop in with come off mute for a second and pop in with a question. John, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that's good. We're right on.
Okay.
That's perfect.
Okay. The other thing that we did was we took the carvings and grouped them in what we ended up kind of thinking of as a virtual show classification. And we did that for best competitive comparison and for learning. And so let me talk a little bit what that point means. Probably about 95% of the people that sent in a carving saw themselves as novice carvers rather, and the carving being a novice classification. If you had gone to a live show, you'd put it in a novice level. There were, so really what that meant for this virtual show is that we really only have 3, first, second, and third in novice, and really not enough in intermediate or open to have any level of competition or comparison. So what John and I did is we looked at all the carvings and we said to ourselves, okay, which ones would be seen, we would see normally at a live show that might fall into the novice category? And which ones could we imagine might go into the intermediate category, and which ones would go into the open category? So we arbitrarily moved those into various classifications so that we'd have carvings that would have a competitive comparison with another. And that's the way you learn, right? We want to have the best competitive comparison. So you're up against carvings that are at the same level as the carving that you happen to submit for this show and competition. And it was a learning for you and a learning for us as well. So this was our ability to take a look at the carvings in these classifications and say, okay, what have we learned from this? What can John and I do that we can plan to do a better job or introduce different subject matter in the coming Zoom calls that will help all of these things that we've seen in novice, intermediate, and open. Okay. And then we went through and we critiqued each one. We made notes. John has notes. I have notes, the same notes, and we're going to just kind of bounce back and forth fairly informally in talking about each of the carvings. And at the end, we awarded a first, second, and third in open, a first, second, and third in intermediate, and a first, second, and third in novice. Okay, and this critique that we're about to get into is, it's a critique, but it's a discussion as well, and it's similar to what you'd see at a live show. Now, you haven't seen at a live show just a critique of caricatures; it's a critique of all of the carvings that were entered in 25 or 26 categories. This is just a critique of the 29 carvings that we saw. Okay, so because this is a bit of a discussion as well as a critique, I thought we'd put down a few guidelines. So this is all about an opportunity for us to learn and have some fun with it. So we're not going to get too serious about it, but we're going to look at opportunities where we can learn from what we're seeing here and hopefully learn from what John and I are offering as suggestions. John and I, as the 2 judges, we're going to provide a very brief critique focused on each individual carving. And we're going to do that, first of all, to highlight areas that have been mentioned on our calls. So when we see a carving, you're going to say, hey, you remember when we talked about this? Well, here's a good example of that. Okay. And it's just to kind of reinforce the kind of things that are at least important to John and important to me when we do our own caricature carvings. And we're also going to do that critique and focus on the individual carvings to offer considerations on how the carving may be improved. So, you know, recognize that this isn't a slight in anybody's carving. We look for ways to improve. You could have the best of show carving at a live show, and there's still a judge will talk to you about here's what else you could have done to improve. And that's the way we learn, and that's the way we kind of move ahead in the carving world, right? As we listen to each other, we consider the thought. It's not a slight in any way, but for every one of the carvings we've talked about, here's what we're seeing in terms of what we've talked about on calls, and here's some considerations for you to improve. We thought we'd be open for questions for clarity on the judge's viewpoint. So if John or I say something from a viewpoint of an individual carving and we're not clear on it or you don't quite understand it, speak up and we'll say it again or say it differently so that you understand the point that we're making. What we don't want to do is get into a debate about this. So this isn't, you know, let's open it up to 26 judges. That would be just impossible for us to manage. It'd be fun, but it'd be impossible for us to manage. So, but if you have a question on clarity that we can get to, certainly come off of mute, ask the question, and we'll get it answered. I think we should also be open for questions on how something of interest may have been done. So if we're talking about somebody's carving here and you'll see the person's name on the carving and you find something really interesting about that and say, geez, how does that get done? How did you do that? Then we'll open it up for questions on that too, so that we learn a little bit like we do in our normal Zoom calls. Now, having said all of that, you know, turning this critique that would normally be at a live show as a very much a presentation and not a discussion, we're turning that hopefully into a bit of a discussion. We have to recognize we only have a couple minutes plus per carving. We have almost 30 carvings, so you know, if we take 2 or 3 minutes, that's going to be the show. Okay, John, anything to add to that?
No, that's good. We're right on. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, and are there any questions from anyone on that? All right. Well, let's start off with Lee. I think it was you that offered this up, that you had seen a book written by Dave Stetson, and you offered up this caricature definition. I think it's worthwhile to put it in front of us again, because really this is the sort of notion that we've been judging against. So a caricature by definition is exaggeration of realism, whereas a cartoon can be regarded as a distortion of realism. And I think it was Richard Holden that gave us a good example of that. He said, you know, when he does a cartoon, it's okay to put 3 fingers on one hand, but when you do a caricature, you need all of the digits. It's not a distortion of realism like a cartoon is. It's an exaggeration of realism. Okay. And in a caricature carving, joints have to bend where they're supposed to bend, and all of the proportions of anatomy are respected. They're exaggerated for effect, but without distortion. So, you know, you can't have your arms dragging along the ground, as an example. You can't have an elbow bend the wrong direction off to the side. So everything has to be respected in terms of anatomy, but exaggerated. And finally, basic realism is respected in everything that you carve, even if it's like little accessories that you carve. You have basic realism is respected, as are things like clothing, the folds you have in clothing and the draperies of clothing. Okay. All right, at the end of the day, everybody's going to get a first place, second place, third place certificate, and it's going to look something like this. And what we'll do is we'll print one off and send it to you in the mail, so that you can put it in a frame in your craft room or your workshop. And I'll also send it to you electronically too, if you want to print it off yourself as well. Okay. First place winners, in addition to this certificate, so first place winners in open, first place in intermediate, and first place in novice will get 1 year subscription to the Ontario Wood Carvers, to the OWCA. If you're already a member of the OWCA, we'll just extend your membership for 1 year. Okay, and that's what I had to say. John, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that's good. We're right on.
Okay. Any questions from anyone before we open it up and start the critique now? I wonder if anyone's there, John.
Quiet crowd.
Quiet crowd. Okay, John, I'll start with this one.
Okay.
What are you saying?
Oh, Lee, you might want to mute unless you had a question. Okay. So this one is Slim to Limb, a lumberjack. Mike sent this in to us. You know, as you can see, it's a really nice basswood carving. It's the body, the head, you know, the hat, the whole 9 yards is all done in one piece. The stump was added as a base, as was the pine branch there in the axe. Really, really an attractive design, we thought, a really good looking design. Just the sort of the attitude of the lumberjack there, the way his hat is flipped up on one side, the way that the hem of the sleeves are done, the collar of the sweater. Really a nice, attractive design that you kind of want to come back to and look at. Thought the base was outstanding. Just did a terrific job on putting a base together that really married well with the carving itself. So you can look at the bark of the trunk of the base, the circles in the grain of the top of the trunk. Really nice, really nicely done. And as you're looking at that, you can see the finishing details are really good as well. So you know, what John and I liked about this is that John, I think, mostly talked about the notion of using washes, but clearly, you know, this wasn't just an opaque application of paint on this carving. There were several washes. You can see the different depths of color throughout the individual there, as well as the trunk. You can see how, especially at the back of this carving, the right-hand side, you can see how dirt was added. So, you know, a little bit of brown was scratched in place here and there. And it just made the carving look that much better, we thought. And a really good sheen as well. So, you know, we're all trying to get away from this real shiny look on a carving. And so Mike really did a good job of getting a real, I guess you'd almost call that a matte finish, but a real attractive finish. What would you add to that, John?
Yeah, the improvements. I think the exaggeration, you know, could have been more exaggerated. You know, the hands could have been bigger. For like, as a caricature, you want the hands bigger, the nose bigger. But other than that, it's a beautiful carving.
Yep. Yeah. We were a little concerned with this limb length, and that's one of the things.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we talked about that quite a bit on our Zoom calls, is that it's really hard, you know, when you do a challenge, you know, this is a challenging carving actually, because that one leg, the way it's kicked up on the side, it's hard to get all the limb length just right when you're carving. And you know, the way I've gotten around that is to do it in clay. If I run into something like that, how would I do that in clay to make sure that this limb length is going to be the same as the limb length from the back of the heel to the back of the knee there. Other people use little cardboard pieces or little pieces of wood to just kind of play with it to make sure the limb length is right on. But just a beautiful carving. We really like this carving. You want to start this one, John?
Yep. Okay, this is Slim to Limb.
No,
Nice.
this is Dog Walker. This is Dog Walker.
Oh, wrong. Sorry. Dog Walker.
Yeah.
Yes, nice carving, funny story. Nice little story to it. Good expression in his face. You can tell that the guy's, you know, the dog's going again, and he's got a bag full, and it's a cute little carving. And I like the head size, like everything's good. The hands are exaggerated. You know, it's a nice little carving.
Yeah. It's a very clean, very cleanly carved. You know,
Yeah.
you can take a real close look at this and you don't see any burrs or anything. I like the few wrinkles as well, John, that he put in there around the bottom of the trousers.
Yeah, that's good.
As we looked at ideas for improvement, although there's there's some motion going on, I guess, with the dog, it's a fairly static carving, right? So the guy's standing, he's appropriately kind of got a gaze off up to one side because he's a little annoyed, but it's a fairly static carving, and so just wondering what more motion could have been put into that, a little bit more of exaggeration with the shoulders and his disdain with what the dog's doing. Also wondered about, the theme here is that the dog's going again and he's already gone once and the guy's holding the bag. I wonder how you could have brought more attention to that in this carving. Maybe it's a larger bag. I don't know. Maybe it's the guy looking at the bag or holding the bag out. I don't know. But that might have been something to think about as well. In this is clearly a caricature carving. The hands are a little bit bigger. The head is certainly bigger. So, and the ears and the nose are certainly bigger. Something that you could think about is, just increasing the hand size a bit, increasing the size of the feet a bit. But real nice carving. Okay. You want to start, or you want me to start, John?
Well, go ahead, Mark.
Okay, so again, this is another really nice carving. This is another from Alec. This one to me has more obvious, clear theme. You have to look at the other one, say, okay, here's the bag and whatnot. This one, it says it right there. Here, honey, where's my pants? He's not wearing pants. He's got a real odd look off to the side and slightly tilted up. It's a puzzled look on sort of the guy's face. He's holding his belt. Really good theme. The details are just fantastic. Like the detail of the belt. I really like the emblems on his uniform. Really well done. All the flashes on his uniform. Really well done. The buttons. I like the brass and chrome buttons that are on there. They really look smart. And again, the eyes off to one side really made the carving to me. So that's really good. You want to talk about how to improve, John?
Yeah. I like the eyes. Well, the eyes are good because you can tell that he's looking out for his wife, or calling out to her. It's really good. I really like that carving. The wood grain in the face and the exaggeration of the hands could have been a little bit bigger. I think they could. And the shoulders, the one side's a little smaller than the other. So that could have been cleaned up a little bit. But other than that, it's a great carving.
Real nice carving, yeah. Nice base,
Yeah.
Beautiful base too. Look at the wood.
Nice piece.
Yeah. Okay. This is a fireman, and you can see that, again, this is another beautiful carving. Obvious storyline. The doghouse is on fire. And the local volunteers, it looks like, are out to help out with it. So, a funny, comical, cartoonish sort of a caricature that you just like looking at, right? Lots of animation in this one, obviously, a lot of motion. Everybody's gritting their teeth. You can see the one guy with his wrench on the hydrant and his foot up against it. Even the dog looks kind of forlorn, doesn't he? Really, really, really good storyline, good theme, easy to come up with what's going on with just a glance. This is very much an exaggerated caricature, so this would certainly be in a caricature carving category with the size of the hands, the arms, the legs, the feet, the whole 9 yards. It really, really looks good. Even the size of the wrench, right? Really good details. And so, you can't zoom in like John and I did as we were looking at this, but really good details. The figures are really clean and well detailed. The house is really smart looking. The little dog house is smart looking. The hydrant is well done. The hose obviously was all carved. You probably can't see it from your photos, but there's a pin back in here pinning the hose there, and then, it's in behind this guy's arm. But really nice details to it. And from a finishing standpoint, a painting standpoint, really use the full spectrum of colors. So again, if you're able to zoom in, you'd see various tones throughout all of the individuals, and you can really see that in spades in the dog. And so the way Dave was able to blend in the brown down to the lighter brown here, there's not a delineated spot where you say, okay, I stopped painting with this color and started painting that. It's a beautiful blend that was a wash, and I really like to see that. And Dave did a really nice job of that. John, I'll let you do the how to improve.
Okay, I think the sheen on the overall carving, like you don't need to have maybe the specific spots shiny, like the hats would be shiny, but like the shirt and the arms, that could be just a little dulled down a bit, would have made it a nice story. And the arms are a little like a little bit longer than they should be. I would have them a little bit shorter. So make it a pattern before, and that would help. The pattern of the arms before you attach them.
All right.
Other than that, it's great.
Thanks, John. Okay, Paul Acton sent in this monk. John, do you want to start off with this one?
Sure. Nice carving. It's a beautiful carving. Real exaggerated nose. The hands are good size. So they're perfect. It's a beautiful little carving. Would have been like the paint job would have been a little bit better with the cleaned up on the paint on the finish. The details are excellent. It tells a nice little story. He's reached out for something, or he's got something in his hand there. It's the roughness, the roughness in the fabric on the robe looks really good. Looks like a real robe. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and
Nice
so
carving.
yeah, well, as you think of how to improve this one, like one of the things we really noticed was the roughness in the road, and if you robe rather, and if you zoomed in, you could see the roughness actually worked well with this carving, because it kind of gave you the feeling of a rough robe that a 15th century, 16th century monk would wear. So it worked well with that. But there were spots where it didn't look like the knife was sharp enough, and you could see a little bit of a few burrs and a few breaks in the wood. And so maybe a little bit more attention to the sharpness of the carving, and this one would have improved it as well. Okay.
In the base.
All right. It is a real nice piece, yeah. And so here's what we've got. So for our open class, Dave Wilson gets first place. Paul Acton is coming in on second place, and Alec Pritchard is in third place with the dog walker.
Congratulations, everybody.
Okay, let's go to intermediate level then. And the first one up is the hairdresser. So again, this was really a nice carving, good proportions in this particular carving, a lot of detail in the accessories. So really liked all of the details of the comb and the hair blower. The anatomy is very balanced. We like that about it. We saw some feeding of the shirt. Murray, you're just going to have to go on mute, okay? Because we're getting feedback from your iPad. So the painting on the shirt, you can see Murray put in a little bit of a pattern there, which was quite nice. Really like the dog. The dog is really well shaped. It's hard to do a dog like that, and it's really well shaped and a good looking caricature of that particular dog. And also liked the way that Murray Lincoln here put in impressions of the buttons. So he didn't carve in each button. He just put an impression into the wood, and it's just right, I think, for the carving. John, you want to talk about some improvement ideas?
Yeah, sharpness of the carving, I would improve with those few burrs there. We could have cleaned up, taken more time to do that finish. the pug, you could tell that dog's a pug. It's
Mhm.
that's really good. And a base would have been a nice base, would have added to the story. You
Mhm.
like telling like hair, picking up hair on the floor or whatever it was. A base would have been a nice piece to it, add
Yeah,
to it.
yeah. And maybe also a little bit more exaggeration in the size of the hands and possibly
Yeah.
even the feet. Yeah. Good carving though, really nice carving. Okay, this is the bird lover that Mike Southland sent in. So again, a good carving, really good facial proportions so that John helped us spend a lot of time talking about getting the eyes really back in the head and the nose out and the mouth and the ears just right. And I think that Mike made good use of that and put together a real face here. It's just fun to look at. It's a carving that is fun to look at. Really good detail in the birds and all the accessories that Mike added. That addition of the worm, I think it looks like leather. I think Mike was telling us at one point that that was leather. Really good use again in painting using a spectrum of colors. So you can see in the shirt and the lapel and in the face and the hat, in all of the birds, a lot of different colors, and it brings a lot of interest to the carving. The sheen is probably just right again. You don't see really any super shiny spots. Nice shiny eyes. He may have used a little epoxy in there or urethane, and that's the spot you want to see shiny. How would you improve this one? Well, a few thoughts that John and I had. Maybe that brim thickness, just coming down a little bit. The thickness of the brim hat there might be a little bit coarse, and that could come down in size. The other thing is, like Mike included an awful lot into this carving, but it also makes it look a little bit crowded. And one of the things that we talked about as a group is don't be afraid to add more wood to the carving. So as you can see down to the bird at the bottom of the guy's torso and the binoculars, it's okay to add another piece of wood in there if you've run out of wood. And so that's something we talked about, and this is a good example of how that might have improved this carving by just adding that little bit more wood. Good carving.
Yeah.
John?
Yeah. Yeah, the facial expression, the facial proportions are excellent on this one. Good choice to finish. The base could have been a little bit better, a little improved. Got improvement for that. And the sharpness of the carving. If you zoomed in on it, you could see some little burrs and cutouts a bit. But other than that, it's a good carving. Really nice.
Okay, Sue sent in a lumberjack. And again, this is just a nice, simple caricature. I don't know if you'd call it a flat plane style, but it's very close to being a flat plane style of caricature. And given being a flat plane style, really good proportions, really good posture. It doesn't look like the head's back too far and he's stiff as a board. He's a hardworking lumberjack. He's kind of slouched over a little bit. The eyes are a lot different than what we would have been talking about in our caricatures, but that's because this is the nature of this particular type of carving, a close to a flat plane carving. So the eyes are a little bit cartoonish, but I don't know whether it's the fact that the hat's low on his head or whether it's actually carved in this way, but they're kind of cartoonish, but they they look like they almost have a little bit of an attitude. They're pleasing to look at. It's a static pose for sure, but in this case, John and I thought it really worked for this style of carving. Like the paint, the paint again was clearly not just applying something opaque. You can see different tones in the paint, probably a combination of different colors, certainly in the beard. But it's also probably because it soaked into the wood in different ways, and it just made a really nice, pleasing look. It's nice to look at something that has a spectrum of colors and various colors as you look through it. Now, how would you improve this one? Well, again, Sue may have set out to make the feet squarish because that's the style of the carving. I think that if I would suggest anything, I'd round out those feet a little bit more, and that may have just improved the overall look. There's a little bit of squareness in the arms that I might suggest that could be rounded out a little bit. And as John was saying earlier about another carving, a question about a base. Now, would the base add to this? Would it detract from that? It's hard to say, but you could kind of picture in your mind a small base with maybe some wood shavings or wood chips on it. So there's some thought. Really a nice carving. John, you can do the spoon carving.
Yeah. Nice little carving, close to the flat plane again. A little bit more rounded than the last one, but it's really good. The same eyes, style's good. It's good finish, more translucent and it's nice. It's not a shiny. It's more natural, and so a nice little carving.
Yep.
And improvements, the squareness of the shoes and the openness of the eyes. They're you're going to put an eyelid in there really easily, and the shoes could have been not so flat and square.
Mm-hmm.
Would have been really nice, and a base.
Okay. All right, and that rounds out our intermediate level, and the winners are, and first is Mike Southen, and second is Murray Lincoln, and third is Sue McCollum. So congratulations. All right, and that takes us to novice level. John, you want to start with this one?
Yeah, the gargoyle. Nice carving, good facial proportions and exaggerations. Good carving of detail. Needs a sharper, you need the sharpness of the blade again. That would have been a good improvement. The finish was that's probably the natural finish would be the wood, but I think mainly if it was a little cleaned up a little bit better, you'd have some good improvement there. But a nice carving.
Okay, Mike sent us in a Santa, again a very nice carving, good facial proportions. So again, as I look at that, I see a lot of the things that John talked to us about is the eyes sunk back into the head so that the bridge of the nose comes out more, the placement of the cheeks, good facial proportions. I like the random beard strokes that he put in. Often you see a Santa Claus and the beard is just straight down or just very minimal. Mike did a good job of giving some random strokes here with a gouge, and I think it makes it look a lot nicer. Good use of color, so you can see in the face in particular, he's got a lot of different tones there. Nice rosy nose and cheeks. The top of the hat is also kind of modeled a little bit with kind of different tones of red, and I think that looks nice. Now, how would you improve this one? As you look at it, you might say, geez, the left to right balance on the face, and in particular the cheeks, you might take a look at that and see how could I have improved that. You might remember that one of the things that we talked about, and this is particularly important for bird carvers who need to get everything absolutely symmetrical. They'll even take their bird and they'll turn it and look at it in a mirror, because the mirror will switch left to right for you, and you'll see things that you didn't see by just looking at it straight on, because you kind of get used to looking at it straight on when you're carving. When you swing it and look in the mirror, all of a sudden you see something that you didn't see before. And so I think that might be the case here, that the left and right could have used that kind of trick of what if I switch this into a mirror? Now I can see that one cheek is a little bit different than the other, and then how do I shore that up? Again, sharpness of carving, and we keep coming back to that, and we talked about that a lot in our Zoom calls. Knives have to be really sharp, or else the wood starts to tear. And if you start zooming in on this a little bit, you can see where the gouge would tear the wood a little bit. The other item is, you can see in the Santa's hat, the brim, if you want, or that collar, and then the little ball off to the side, probably a little bit more random work there. you know, it's really good that the gouge was used to give you a different texture there, but it's very, very uniform. And something a little more random always looks nicer when you're trying to pull together kind of a furry look or a fluffy look. But a nice carving. John, you want to do this one?
Yeah, golf season. Nice story. Good. Lots going on there, that's for sure. All the golf equipment, the good base, lots of color, and yeah, it's a nice little carving. It's tells a good story about you know, the golf season with the COVID and all this stuff. So it's nice little carving.
You know, how would you improve on that? You know, it always comes down, like, you know, Roger did a really good job of detailing this in, and it often comes down to what's a good balance of detail versus, you know, just getting the point across quickly in the theme. Now, this looks really complex, and it is a complex carving, but because it doesn't have a backdrop, you can see beyond the carving, and it makes it even look busier. But you know, you might, in terms of a way to improve this, you might think, you know, how could I have gotten this same message across with less complexity, if you want? So something to think about. Exaggeration of features in terms of caricature carving. Certainly the head is exaggerated. I don't know if I would say the hands and the feet are as exaggerated as they could be, and how you could have got away with more exaggeration. So that might be something to think about as well. The eyes, we looked at the eyes, and it was hard to see from the photo how much was carved in. If it was carved in, it was rather shallow. And so another thought for this carving is, how could those eyes have been more impacted in? Getting the eye, as we've talked about several times, getting the eye further into the head automatically makes the nose come out for you. And so that might be something that could have been thought of as well too, but a really good carving. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
the
do.
Viking.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, nice carving, simple carving, simple little nice, good effects. The accessories that tell the story. He's a Viking fighter, that's for sure. Nice paint job. It's I was just wondering what he had underneath to paint, like if he put something on the wood. But it's a nice little painting, and it's
yeah, this part up here kind of intrigued us. Well, you know, on another Zoom call, we'll have to see how that was crackled like that. Really good abrasion in here, kind of gave it an interesting look. Just the little details, the notches in the shaft here of his axe, those kinds of things are kind of nice. Certainly the detail on the shield was nice as well. So a couple ideas for improvement, you know, looking at the back of it, you know, again here, the shoulder, how could that have been blended in a little bit more rather than looking like a, you know, a shoulder just kind of popping out beyond his body. If you could zoom in here, you might also say just a little bit more sharpness in carving, especially around the nose. For some reason, it was a little bit rough, and again, you know, just having that real sharp blade and making real deliberate cuts gets rid of any roughness. But again, a nice carving. All right. So this is the hiker. Want me to do this one, John?
sure.
Okay. So again, a real nice carving, good posture in this. So you can see it's not ramrod straight. He's bent at the knees. His shoulders are a little bit, you know, throwing his weight over his knees. Good facial features. So again, going back to what we've been talking about, getting those eye sockets in, pulls the nose out, good size ears, nice, nicely fashioned jaw and below the cheekbone, you know, good looking facial features. Placement of wrinkles, pretty good. Like you can see the wrinkles behind the knees, at the cuffs, just above the shoes. Really good shoulder placement, I thought, and in particular this photograph here, like that's the kind of gradual shoulder slope that you want to see working into the neck. rather than, coming out like this. So good job pulling those shoulders in. Interesting translucent finish. I think that again, the finish is not super shiny. It just seems to be the right level of sheen to me, and it gives you the impression that again, a spectrum of colors was used. So nice job. Now, how would you improve on this one? One of the things we talked about, and it may be the case here and may not just be showing up in the photos, but whenever you do get a wrinkle, putting a little darker tone of whatever color you're using in that wrinkle really brings that wrinkle out even more. So that might have been something to think about. The use of wrinkles is always good, but you got to be careful too. So you might question these wrinkles at the back of the arms. Is it something you'd see on the back of the arms? If this was like a knit sweater, you might see something like that. But one of the things that we talked about again was putting the sweater on yourself or the jacket on yourself and standing in front of the mirror and seeing what it looks like, and then trying to replicate that in the caricature. We've been talking a lot about exaggerating the size of things. I wonder if the hands are a little bit over exaggerated in this, and the only thing you can compare that to is the size of the feet. And so that might be something that may have improved this if the hands were a little bit more in line with the feet, either the feet larger or the hands a little bit smaller. You want to do
Hey,
Santa?
Santa. Nice carving, well proportioned. The nice brightness of the color. Facial features are really good. Yeah, it's a nice little carving. I think by improving it'd be a little more rounder on the arms, like the elbows there. That would have been, and maybe the face a little more rounder on the cheeks. Almost, it's a mix between a flat plane and like a caricature, rounded caricature carving. But it's a nice little carving. Excellent.
Yeah, I find Santa's hard to do, but if you go in deep right here on each side, that gives you the rounder face and still keeps the beard there.
Mhm.
And so there's some roundness there, but yeah, I think John, points well taken that this could have been a little bit rounder in terms of the face. Cute carving. Okay, Kevin sent us in the 5-second rule, and so this is really a nice little carving. A great theme carried throughout. So the guys barbecuing there, the dogs waiting for that thing to hit the ground, and we wondered if the base was actually to mimic a steak, because it made us think of a steak. But anyways, it's a real nice theme, and easy to understand the theme at a quick glance. The accessories done are really well done. If you might not be able to see it off of your screen, but the grill is in place. The utensils have got some twisted wire there. There's charcoal underneath the grills. The patio blocks, adding the patio blocks, I think, added to it. And, I'll also mention the hat. Like, it's really difficult to carve something that is supposed to look fluffy. And, in this carving, it happened. I mean, that looks like a fabric fluffy hat. And so it was probably sanded or something to give it a real smoothness, and it comes across really good. John, you want to talk about improvement ideas?
Yeah, the shoulders. That could have been a little bit tightened up a little bit and a little closer. If you want to put your mouse on the shoulder there, Mark. It's yeah, right there. It could have been a little smoother towards the chest instead of so say he's got like shoulder pads on, football player.
Yeah.
But if we look something to look at, and the dog's a little, he's got no rear end.
Actually that dog, it gives you the impression that he's kind of standing up to get to the barbecue, and
yeah.
that's what impression gives me. And so if the two front legs had been up here, it would really give you the impression that now the dog is standing up and is kind of in a begging sort of an attitude, right? Yeah,
that would have been a good improvement.
Yeah, good carving.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, Bob sent in the Hunter, again, a nice carving, all aspects of a theme. You can take a look at that and right away you understand that this guy's heading out on a hike. He's got his backpack, he's got the water bottles, he's got the cane, he's got the rifle. He's ready for a day's adventure. Good exaggeration of the head and the hat. So, again, the head is much bigger than you'd expect it to be for a carving this size. So good exaggeration of the head and the ears and the nose. Elements of the facial features are there. So you can see that the eyes are a little bit into his face, and that gives him a little bit of a bridge of a nose, but probably could argue that that could be quite a bit deeper and you would have gotten away with that. How would you improve this? Certainly more roundness in the body. So, you can still see some squareness in the shoulders and the arms, around the back and in the feet and ankles here. So, some more wood could have been taken off just to give it some more roundness. And again, the notion of the sharpness of the carving. And so, making sure that your gouges, if you're using gouges, or knives, if you're using knives, are absolutely razor sharp. So you get a real smooth cut. You can see some roughness in here, yet right here, it's a very smooth cut. And this is what you're looking for throughout the carving. But nice carving.
Man on the bench, man and dog on the bench. Nice little carving, it's got a nice, good little story to it. There again, like the flatness would have been, it's a challenging carving, that's for sure. Getting a guy to sit on the bench, that's challenging for sure. But yeah, it's
Yeah, I think,
to improve it.
yeah,
Yeah,
well,
go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, from a challenging standpoint, like this is one of the ones that, at a novice level, you wouldn't expect somebody to take the challenge of a carving like this. So it's really great to see, because that's how we learn and that's how we improve. It's hard to get an arm up like that on a bench, to understand, okay, how far does it have to be and what should that look like? It's hard to get a leg crossed and make sure that that limb is the same length as that limb. And so it comes back to, one way to improve it is to think in terms of, well, geez, for this particular pose, I'm going to do a clay model, or for this particular pose, I'm going to make it out of, little strips of cardboard to make sure that I get each piece exactly where I want it. Because this composition is a really challenging composition.
And I always go back to modeling too. Get your wife to sit there and take a picture of her with the same pose that you want to make, and that helps.
Yeah,
might have to pay her, but it's okay.
Yeah. Okay, John sent in a Santa in a tub, and again, a real nice carving, a fun theme. So, you can just see the expression on his face. The tub is too hot. And so kind of a cute carving. Really good anatomy on this. Just look at the shoulder placement here. And so, I think a doctor would tell you that this is called the trapezoid muscle coming down to the shoulder, nice and gradual rather than squarish. So that, it's actually a really nice example of, shoulder to neck anatomy that we're looking for. Elements of the facial features are all there. The eyes are a little bit further back, probably argue to be a little bit further back, because it does look a little flat when you look at it this way, doesn't it? So, the eyes could have even been further back, but a good attempt at getting those eyes back. The barrels and the suds are very well executed and painted. Like that's a really good looking barrel. Really good looking suds coming out of the top of that. And the way that John chose to paint that with a bunch of different colors, you can see again, he didn't just paint it one color. There's a bunch of different colors in there, including in the gaps and the steel bands. It really brought it out. You might also notice that the barrel is very dry looking, has a matte finish, whereas the Santa is a little bit glossy because he'd be wet. So kind of nice. In terms of how to improve this one of the things that we've talked about, I think a couple of times, is one of the fun things about caricature carving is researching it. Like you're going to do something. You might recall that infantry guy that I did, that War of 1812 infantrymen that I did. I had more fun just researching what the canteen back then looked like and what the backpack looked like. It's just enjoyable. And so in this case, and John may have done this, but I think that if you research what does a barrel look like, unless you intended the barrel to be a little bit broader at the top, a barrel actually necks down at the top as well as the bottom. So it's more of that shape. And so just raise that as a consideration for improvement and a reason to go ahead and, to take advantage of researching your stuff because it's fun.
The
John?
Harley Rider. Nice carving, nice theme. It's good anatomy. The helmet, Mark told me about that. The helmet comes on and off. That's always tricky. Lots of details on the boots and nice little carving. Improvement, I would, with the sharpness again, the sharpness of the knife. Strop your knife every time you start detailing. Strop that knife. Give it 10 on each side, and then start doing the detail, and that would help and improve. The shoulders are good. Yeah, it's a nice little carving.
Good. Okay, Roger sent in a mountain bike accident. So again, a really nice carving, very understandable theme. Most of us have been in this shape at one point off of a bike, but you can take one look at it and understand what happened to this poor guy. Really good facial roundness. So if you just look at the face, really good, it's down into the shoulders, kind of suits this particular carving. Lots of detail, lots of addition of accessories. You can see it looks to me that used a little bit of metal for the handbars, and that's great. Looks great. The wires look like the bike cables. Really nice accessories. Good use of the painting. And so, you can see that a lot of the painting is opaque. It's not a wash or translucent, but he added a lot of dirt and a lot of specks to make it look like the guy's really beaten up. How would you improve this one? Looking at it, you might say, how could I exaggerate the anatomy a little bit more? The head is really well animated in terms of exaggeration. The hands, to a lesser extent, but certainly exaggerated. The feet are quite small. And so how would this have improved if in fact the feet were larger and maybe he had legs sort of to match the trunk? Just a thought. Roger may have set out to make it just like this, and that's great, but that might be something as a consideration for a caricature carving. All right. John, you want to do the Fisherman?
Yeah, Fisherman. Nice carving. Easily understood theme. Good expressions. It's a fun little carving. Body anatomy is good. The base is that's really good base on that one. I like the boardwalk it's really nice. And yeah, that's about it for me. It's really good.
Yeah, I really like this carving too. The base is terrific in terms of getting the point across of what's going on. Sitting on an old B. Smith and Sons fishing crate and the worms there, really great. When I do a carving, and it's just me, but something for others to consider when they're doing their carvings, I like to put the name of the carving on the base, and anything carved into the carving doesn't really speak to any description of any sort. And I guess it's back to that notion of exaggerated realism. So in this case, great carving, but you wouldn't see a sign in reality that said fishing on the dock of the bay. You'd see that, for this carving along the base. If anything, that is a thought for improvement in a carving like this. When you're doing a carving like this, I would say on the sign, put something like no fishing. And that's more realistic and still gets the point across. Nice carving though. Okay, this is Gary's. He sent in Brer Fox. This is a very nicely posed carving. There's nothing static in this carving at all. Like just take a look at the body, the feet tipped up as they are. Like it's a really nicely posed carving. Good roundness from all angles, in all three pictures. You don't see really too many flat spots. There's roundness in the arm, roundness in the legs and feet, roundness in the face. How would you improve this? I think the sharpness of the carving. So again, coming back to the notion of a really sharp blade and getting really crisp, controlled cuts. You can see in here as an example where it's not that crisp, whereas right here it's quite crisp. Okay, so you really want that consistency of crispness. I'd say greater uniformity in the limbs. It appears that the limbs get a little slim in some spots and then fatten up a little bit more, and a little bit more color blending too. And so an example of something like this would really be improved with the notion of washes, right? And so you get a real different sense of colors, where colors start and stop. Instead of a delineated line, they bleed into one another. But a really cute little carving.
Brer Rabbit. Nice pose again. That's a hard pose. That's a hard composition there. It's not static, which is really good. Good roundness and all the angles. It's the color blending again could be improved. More not as opaque as we have it. We could do some less blend, or a little more blending. And but it's a cute little carving, that's for sure. The sharpness of the knife has got to be one of the priorities on this carving anyhow. It's got to be clean all the little burrs out of that burr rabbit. And yeah, that's all I got for that one. That's a good one.
Okay, good carving. Hold on here. We'll get this. Give me a break. There we go. Okay, this is Benny. Lee sent in Benny. So this is a nice carving that really caught our eye too. Really good proportions in this carving. So you look at that and right away, that's a caricature. Okay, the hands, the feet are about the right size, the head's about the right size, nose, great big nose, eyes sunken back in, good proportions, funny theme, right? So this is a guy that's really imaginative. He's got the costume on. He's got a carrot in his mouth. He's got the Easter bunny basket there. He's got the little bunny slippers. Really nice additions of all those things make it worth kind of coming back and looking at. Good painting with tones. You might not see it as well from the size of the photo, but the costume has got various different tones in, almost like it's like a loosely patterned, fluffy outfit. The carrot, I think, really sets it off as a caricature, as a funny little item. Love his hairstyle. How would you improve this? Well, I think a few things for improving. One is, painting accuracy. So although it's really nicely done with different tones, there's a little bleeding one into another. And that might go back to this notion that we talked about, of using the wood burning tool to make a little valley so that the one color doesn't bleed into another. Also, the ears are really cute. With one of these ears flopped over front or a little bit on an angle, would that have also improved the carving rather? And finally, would a base have improved it? It looks nice the way it is right now, but I always question, geez, I wonder what it would look like with a base, and whether the base would have added to the theme. Nice carving though. We like this carving. John?
Bear on the throne. Bear on the throne. Yes. Yeah, nice little carving. It's got good story to it. The little squirrel is really cute on the tree. I like the base. It tells a story that helps with the story. The sharpness of the knife would help and improve this. And the side profile of the bear would have been, if it was a sharper knife, would have improved this carving, that's for sure. And yeah, that's all I got there, Mark.
Yeah, I really like the base, like the addition of all those shavings and whatnot. It really kind of set it off too. It was well thought out. The throne is a trunk of a tree of a limb, and it's routed out in the center, and that's the throne. So really cute. John sent in a winking Santa here. Thought that was a nice carving. A good general shaping of the face. Again, so you can see, like John put some thought into the depth of the eyes, the size of the nose, the size of the ears. So good thinking of that. I had to look at this, to be honest with you, a couple of times, and I started to really appreciate how challenging a carving this was, because what he's carving here is a wink. So the Santa is winking. And if you look at yourself in the mirror when you're winking, one cheek's up a little bit, your nose is going to be off to the side a little bit. And that's exactly what's happening in this carving. So a very, very challenging carving to do, to come up with a winking face. And, I really appreciate that, John is trying to do that. They're a really good job at it. The painting is nice and bright, and the pink red is what you'd expect out of a Santa Claus. So how do you improve this one? Well, again, it goes back to that, the challenge of the wink. Is the nose a little bit too far off? Is it going in the wrong direction? I don't know. I'd have to go back and look in the mirror and try to wink, but it's the notion of really, when you take on a challenging project like that, like really researching it and taking a look at even yourself in the mirror and trying to mimic that. Good carving.
Okay, the gnome. Gnome out of butternut. It's a really clean carving. Nice roundness of the details. Good face. The hands could have been a little more detailed. But other than that, I like the bow at the back of his apron is really good. Nice little carving.
Yeah, and in terms of improvement, it's a little bit of a struggle. Would this have been in a caricature category? Possibly not. To turn this into more of a caricature, you'd want the ears a lot bigger, the hands a lot bigger. I think the feet are about the right size for caricature, but for a gnome, this is probably about right. Looks good. And that's the last of our carvings, I think. And so at the novice level, first goes to Baz, second goes to Lee, and third goes to Craig. So congratulations. So what are our next steps? And we'll use this as our last slide and then come back to look at each other in the videos. Those are the things that we judged against, things that we've tried to talk about on Zoom calls. And so John and I are going to go back to this now and say, okay, what can we do more to talk about composition and design, talk about the use of bases? What can we do to go back and talk about technical difficulty, how to get more animation into a carving or interest into a carving? What can we bring back ourselves or through others around the whole notion of sharpening knives, how to take care of any burrs or issues that remain on the carving prior to painting? How can we go back and look at the fit of shoulders and legs and those types of things? And then spend a little more time on finishing painting, as we really haven't spent much time on that. So the whole notion of painting accuracy, use of the wood burning tool, how to get away from just opacity painting to the use of washes and using a whole spectrum of colors. So our intent is to come back to that. So folks, that is what we wanted to talk about tonight. And so we'll just kind of open it up for comments or questions or suggestions on how we can do that better for our second show.
Can I make a comment? Perhaps a number of people have thought this, it's Dan in Grand Bend. And I just want to thank you guys. You can sure tell that you put a lot of work into this.
It was a lot of fun, Dan.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and super job. I was very impressed. Thank
Good,
you.
thanks very much. We enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was
Thank
fun.
you very much.
It's hard to work with John, but that comes part and parcel with it, right?
I can't reach them.
Yeah. Okay, any questions or comments?
And what do you guys want? What do you want us to work on? What would you suggest that that you need help on, and we'll come up with something that we need. Like, I think we should be working on the paint, one of the first ones, or one of the improvements. We should be doing an hour class on an hour show on painting, or do you want an hour show on sharpening? It's up to you guys. What do you want?
Joe, one thing you brought up, a number I noticed it time and time again, is sharpness of knife.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we can revisit that.
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to see more modeling and try different posing in that. We rushed over that pretty quick when you did it. Not that you did it wrong, but I think we can spend time on modeling.
Yeah, I think that was one of the first ones, wasn't it, Craig? I think that's something that Mike did, showed us his
Mike Sullivan,
sculpting, right? So that would probably be worthwhile getting back to, and it really fits into that notion of composition as well. You know, how do we improve the composition, and that modeling is so critical to that.
I'd like to see something on folds and wrinkles and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Great. We're writing this all down.
Hey, Mark, this is for those. I always struggle with carving buttons on coats and stuff. So
Yeah.
that would be a.
Yeah, that'd be good. You know, we saw some good examples of that, didn't we? Tonight even. You know, some people just used the tool to make an impression. Others carved a button. Others yet just used like a pin head or a brass nail head, you know, a decorative brass nail head. All of those are really great reasons, great ways to go about it. And it depends on the carving, the type of carving you're doing. But yeah, that'd be a great thing to come back to first.
Stan Adams here. I guess one of my biggest frustration is the burring. How do we get rid of that burring before we start to paint? Because that seems to, if you don't do a really good job on that one, any form of painting is destroyed in the process. Unless you deburr it after you paint it, I don't know.
Yeah, well, that'd be good. And you know, that probably comes back to what John was saying, is spend a good hour just on painting and finishing. Because I think you're right, Stan. You know, you really can't hide anything with paint, can you? You know, if you
Nope.
try to paint over a problem, it looks like a painted over problem, right?
One thing I found, and maybe it just goes down to the sharpening that we've been talking about, in working with the butternut in particular, as opposed to the basswood, I found that when I was cutting on the cross cut, I had a much, the cut ended up with the grain exposed, like it was pitted.
Mhm.
Much more so than it did with the basswood. I don't know if that's because it was the butternut a little bit harder, or if it was the sharpness of the knife, or more.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, maybe that comes back to the discussion of sharpness when we talk about that. Doug, I've always found that if I get that pitting, it's almost looking like it's crushing, like the wood is too soft, almost pulpy, right? And it's a combination of the wood possibly being pulpy between the grains, but also for sure the sharpness of the tool you're using. Yeah. Okay, folks. Well, that was our first attempt at a caricature carving show and competition. Again, John and I really enjoyed that. I hope everybody got something out of it. I'm looking forward to you know, continuing on with our Zoom calls and talking about some of these things, and then having another competition and just seeing the kind of improvement we make. I think when we go to a live show and we're all there to put our carvings in the caricature category, we're going to take the place by storm.
Mark, I was also thinking, you know, we talk about preparing for painting. I think maybe a small discussion on the burning, or a possible, you know, indication on burning. Maybe John and you can show something. I'm pretty good at the burning part, but I think perhaps that's something we could discuss as well.
Good. Yeah, that's good.
Good point.
Okay, folks, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And sorry, was there another comment? Thanks very much for joining us tonight, folks, and we'll be in touch with you with our plans for our next meeting. Take care.